Hello, in this video I'm going to create a Blazor Server application using .NET 6. It'll be a scheduling app with CRUD operations, MySQL database that we'll build from scratch, and we'll connect to MySQL using Dapper. Here's what the finished product is going to look like. There'll be an admin page and a home page. In the admin page, you can create available appointments. So you can make yourself available or make someone available for an appointment. And then you have these actions here. As long as the appointment has not been reserved, then you can either delete it or you can edit it. So it says add new, but then the form will change. I'm going to edit here. So then you edit the existing appointment. Then if you want to schedule one, so we can see on the 20th there are two. One has already been reserved. I go down here and select the 20th. I can see one of those has already been reserved, and I can reserve the other one. And you can see the interface changes even though I'm only writing C# code. I won't be writing any JavaScript, but we will have an interactive interface. Put the information here, add it, and then you have your appointment here. And if I go back to the admin, I can see I don't have those actions. So I can't delete it, I cannot edit it because someone has already reserved it. And if I go back to the home page, if I delete, cancel my appointment, now go back, this available appointment is now available again, so you could delete it or you could edit it. And again, we'll be building this completely from scratch, including the database. Before we get started though, there are a few things I want to cover. My development environment that I'm going to use is Windows 10 using Visual Studio 2022, the Community Edition, and MySQL Workbench for the UI. And one more thing that I want to mention is, since this is a scheduling application, they can get very complicated. There are many things to think about. Different time zones. Maybe you think your users will only be in one time zone, and then later it turns out there'll be multiple time zones. You have to think about daylight saving time and also universal time, coordinated universal time. You'd think the initials would be CUT, but they're UTC because, and this is a little trivia, the French version would be TUC, and the compromise was to call it UTC. I'm assuming you have Visual Studio 2022 with .NET 6 installed, and also MySQL. As I mentioned, I'll be using MySQL Workbench. You don't have to use MySQL Workbench though, if you don't want to, but you need to be able to connect to MySQL and have it installed. You may need to download Apache as well. Depends on what your setup is. I'm using Windows 10, but you don't even have to use Windows to complete this video. You might use Windows on a virtual machine or something like that. Whatever your environment is, just make sure that you're set up and you can connect to MySQL. I'm opening a brand new project here, create new project, Visual Studio 2022. This is going to be a Blazor Server app. If you haven't opened one recently, just type in Blazor and make sure you choose Blazor Server app. Next, I'm going to call this app Blazor Server app, and then for the solution, I'm going to call it Blazor Server with MySQL. .NET 6, authentication, individual. I'm choosing authentication here, but in this video, I'm only going to focus on the CRUD operations. If there's a lot of interest, I'll go do a part 2 and add in the authentication and some authorization, have some different roles, have a separate admin role, things like that. Create. And I'll run this project just to show you the app already works. We're not going to use all the pages that we get with this project, but I just want to show you as soon as this opens up. This is in case you haven't opened one of these projects before, some of the pages that come with it. So you can see here in this project, home page, counter page, and then the fetch data. This is random weather data. We're not going to use these pages, just wanted to show you. We'll close that out. So first thing I'm going to do is open up this Nav menu in the shared pages. And I'm going to copy the first div, because we'll reuse the home page. And comment out these first three. Don't need those. We'll leave home as it is. And for the admin, we're going to put the wrench symbol. And this OI-wrench, these are coming from in here, this iconic. So we have access to these icons. This is going to be admin. And the link to the page is admin. Then in the pages layout, let's add in some JavaScript, Bootstrap JavaScript that is. Get bootstrap.com, get started. And this is just because I want access to one component. And Bootstrap is a quick way to do it. I'm going to put that script in right under here. And then one more thing, back in the Nav menu, let's change, let's see, Blazor Server app. Let's change the title here. We'll call it Scheduling App. Save those. All right, we already have our Index.razor, but let's create one more. Let's create the Admin.razor. Razor component. If this is off the screen, I'm going add and then razor component. Choose razor component. I'm going to call it admin. Add. All right, we have a razor component. If we look back at the other page, Index.razor, you can see we need this at page. So let's add that, save, and then let's build this again just to make sure I have the two pages that I want. There's home and there's admin. Okay, that works. Now we need some data. We need a way to access data to populate these pages. So the first thing that I'm going to do is build a class library. All right, I'm going to create a new project, add new project, search for class library. Class library that targets .NET Standard or .NET Core. Next, we'll call this data access. .NET 6, create. And we need to add in some dependencies. Manage NuGet packages. Browse. First, we're going to search for Dapper. Install it. And then MySQL.data. Not MySQL data.entity framework core. We do not want that one. We just want MySQL.data. Accept it. All right, we've got our dependencies there. And now let's create a new class. Let's delete class 1. Add class, or you can go to add new item class. Add class. We'll call this MySQL data access. I'm going to create a public. This method here, async task list. We're going to call this load data. Two generic parameters there. String the first string, SQL, this is our SQL statement. Delete from, select star, things like that. And then the connection string is how we connect to the database. Just control dot. This using statement is going to control our connection. It'll open and close it as we need it. IDV connection. Got an extra parenthesis there. Control dot. Using system data. Control dot again. Okay. And then a variable called rows equals await connection query async. This is where Dapper comes in. And we're going to return rows to list. Control dot using Dapper. All right, this is how we're going to access some data. This is our first. This is how we load the data. And then we need one more method. And this is public, by the way. Let's make this public. We need a way to save data. We'll take in a string SQL just like above. Parameters and a connection string. using return connection dot execute async SQL parameters. And with these two methods, we'll be able to load all the data from the database, the MySQL database that we're about to create. And we'll be able to save data, update, delete, etc. And one more thing I'll do here, create an interface. This is optional, but you might need it later, depending on what you do with this project. If you want to use multiple inheritance, you want flexibility to be able to do unit testing, things like that. Just like that, we have an interface. See it right there. Let's update our Program.cs file. Go in here and say builder.services.add singleton. And we want to add in our interface that we just created. MySQL data access, which will implement MySQL data access. And we need a using data access. There we go. Now let's update appsettings.json. We already have one connection string in here because I selected the authentication. So Entity Framework Core and SQL Server, they're all set up for that. So I'm going to leave this default connection alone. I'll leave that right there, and we're going to create another one. And this will be called MySQL connection. And the server equals, this is going to be localhost, that's where I have it, 27.0.0.1. Port equals 3306. Database equals Blazor schedule. Haven't created it yet, but I'm about to. User ID with a space in there equals user ID. I have some credentials here that I'm using just for a demo video. Password equals password. And that's it. That's our connection string for connecting to MySQL. Now we need some models. We'll have two database tables. So the models that we'll create, one will be for available appointment model and one will be for appointment model. So let's create those. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to create a new folder. Add new folder, models. And then in here, add class. First one will be available appointment model. Prop, tab twice. First we'll have an ID. And for the next one, we'll have a Boolean. This is going to be for if the appointment has been reserved. Then we're going to have some date times. Prop date time, start date, date time, start time. The reason I'm creating a separate start date is because it's easier when we start creating the interface, having just a date. You'll see why I'm doing this. You don't have to do it that way, but I think it might make sense when you see. And we need a start date, start time, end time. And then let's do some more date times. We'll do a created at. And an updated at. So there's our first model, and we're going to build a database table that looks just like this. Second model, let's add another class. This is going to be called appointment model. ID. Available appointment ID. This is going to be a foreign key based on the ID of the other table. And we'll have a string here, full name, string.empty, and we'll have string the reason for an appointment. String.empty. Then we're going to have a start time. Oh, this is a date time. Start time. End time. And just to speed it up a little bit, we need a created at and an updated at also. So I'll just copy those from the other model. So now we have our two models, and we need to create a database just like that for those. And for that, I'm going to use we'll use MySQL Workbench. All right, I have MySQL Workbench opened up here, and I'm going to create a new schema. And it will be called Blazor Schedule. Let's apply that. Apply. Okay. Let's see. Okay, there it is. We don't have any tables yet. Let's create a new SQL tab here. And let me double check something here, this Blazor schedule. Look in our project here just to double check appsettings.json. Yeah, Blazor schedule. So that's what the name of the database. So we need to create some tables in here and set as the default schema. Okay, so Blazor schedule, and we need to create a table. Blazor, we really don't need to type Blazor schedule every time here, but just to be sure, Blazor schedule dot available appointment. So that's going to be the name of the table. And inside we need ID, which is an int, not null. And we want this to auto increment. And that's going to be primary key. Then we would need reserved, which is a Boolean. It's okay if that's null. Start date, which we need as a date. Start time is a date time, not null. Say start date. Say not null for that one too. End time, date time, not null. And created at. Daytime. That can be null. Updated at. Daytime can be null. Right, that's just like the model. Typically I use lowercase letters when I'm creating MySQL databases, but I want to match this .NET project. So ID, reserve, start date, start time, end time. Okay. There's one. See if we're missing anything. All right, let's create this table. Okay, so let's refresh. Table, available appointment. Okay, there's no data in there yet, but we have our table. All right, let's create one more. We can reuse a lot of this, so I'm going to copy it. This one is just going to be called appointment. All right, we still need an ID, but we also need available appointment ID, int, and we'll say that can be null. Don't need reserved. We need full name. Say varchar 100, not null. And then we need a reason for the appointment. Don't need a start date, start time, end time, created at, updated at. Primary key is ID. But we also have a foreign key in this one. A foreign key is available appointment ID, which references available appointment ID, and then we're going to say on delete restrict. And the reason for that is if there is already this available appointment ID, if has been used, then we don't want to be able to delete a record in the available appointment table. Meaning if somebody already scheduled an appointment, we don't want someone to be able to delete that appointment or delete the availability for the appointment because it's already been scheduled. It's already been reserved. And that's what this field is for, reserved. So if it doesn't make sense yet, it probably will as soon as we build out the UI. All right, let's take a quick look at this. Make sure we have everything. ID, available appointment ID, full name, reason, start time, end time, created at, updated at. Got our primary key of ID, and we've got our foreign key. All right, let's run this. We've got another table. Let's refresh it. So that's our appointment table. Okay, no data yet. So let's add in some data now. So in our available appointments, let's do that. So let's insert some data. So we'll say insert into Blazor schedule dot available appointment reserved. We don't need to add the ID because that auto increments. Start date, start time, end time, created at, updated at, values, true or reserved. We'll say this appointment has been reserved. True, and we'll say 2022.01.15. For the date, and then for the start time, we'll say 2022-01-15 at 1500. And this is going to be universal time, universal standard time. Coordinated universal time, I think, is the official title. Then let's do, so we've got reserved, start date, start time, end time. So let's copy this one. But change the time, we'll say 1530. Then we can do now for created at, now for updated at. True, I can't remember if true needs to be capitalized here or if it matters. Not sure that it matters. Let's leave it like that and see what happens. All right, let's run this. Let's check available appointment. Okay, we have a record now. So that worked. Okay, now let's put a record into the appointment table as well. So we have a record inside there. Say insert into Blazor schedule that appointment. Available appointment ID. Full name. Reason. Start time. End time. Created at. Updated at. Values. 1. My name. We're going to assume that these appointments are for an auto shop to take your car. (2022) January 15th, 1500. And then put the end time in here. 2022, January 15th, 15:30. And then now. All right, let's run this. So we should have a record in the appointment table now. Okay, we've got an appointment and an available appointment. So let's test something now. See if we can delete from our available appointment. Say delete from Blazor schedule dot available appointment where ID equals 1. See if this works. Did not work. Cannot delete or update a parent row. Foreign key constraint failed. Okay, that's what we wanted to happen. And again, if this doesn't make sense yet, when we start building out the UI, I think it will definitely make sense. So now we have built out the database from scratch. And a quick recap of what we've done so far. We're probably about halfway through, and we need to start building out. Let's open up Visual Studio again. So some of the things that we've done, we adjusted the Nav menu here. We added the bootstrap in there so we can have access to one of the components that uses JavaScript, even though we're not going to write any JavaScript. And we added in a class library right here, so we can, using Dapper, so we can access MySQL, which we're about to test out, make sure that works. We created a new admin component, this right here, Admin.razor. And we updated the Program.cs file. We updated our appsettings.json with our connection string. We created the models, and we have the models that look just like our database. Got those. And we created our MySQL database, and now we're going to start building out the interface. On our two main pages, we have the home page, Index.razor, And we have also our admin page. So first thing, I want to do something. Let's focus on the admin page first. I want to focus on that first. So if we look at our Admin.razor page, we need to make sure we have access to the data library that we created, for one thing. So let's make sure. I called it data access. Probably could have called it data library. But anyway, let's make sure we have access to that data access. Let's should say at using. We need our models. So our Blazor Server app, models, Blazor Server app, right there is our name and models. Then let's inject our interface, MySQL data access. We'll call that underscore data. We'll also inject iConfiguration config. We'll take out this admin. And I want to put everything inside of a div. It's class container. This is a bootstrap class. And then we're going to have various sections. So this first section, this is going to be, call this the avail for available appointments section. And we'll put an H3 here. I'm going to say current available appointments. And then I'm only going to show this in the UI. I'm going to create a table to display the appointments, but I'm only going to show it if we have available appointments. So I'm going to say at if available appointments equals null. If it equals null, then we're going to display this paragraph that just says loading. Else, this is where we're going to put a table in. First, let me create this available appointments. So inside the code section, I'm going to say list available appointments model. It's called available appointments. And the way we're going to get those appointments, load the initial data here. We're going to create this method here, protected, override async, task on, initialize async. And we'll create our SQL statement. Select star from available appointment. And then we'll say available appointments equals await data, load data, available appointment model, dynamic, and then we need our SQL statement we just created, an object, which is blank in this case, and then our config dot get connection string, and we want to use our MySQL connection string. All right, there's our onInitialized async. So when this page initializes, we should, if there are any appointments, which there's one because we created it, they should be loaded up in here into this available appointments. So now when we create a table and display it, you should see that one appointment. So let's create the table so we can see it, and we can use Bootstrap classes. So let's create a table here, table, and then class equals table striped. We got my quotes there. Table head. And I'm gonna add some style in here, inline. I'll probably end up creating a separate CSS file, but for here I'm just gonna drop it inline. And just to go with the Blazor purple theme, I'm gonna say background color 141 1E 5E, should be 141 E5E, okay? And then color white. All right, table row. And some table headers. So let's show the start time, end time, whether it's reserved or not, and some actions. This table head. Now let's go for the table body. This is, we're going to use an at for each. Table row, table data. Say at a dot start time, at a dot end time, at a dot reserved, and then here I only want to show, I want to add in some icons here to be able to delete and to edit, but I only want to show these if it's not already reserved. So we'll do table data, but we're gonna put a if. So at reserved equals false. If it equals false, then we want to, okay, let's put a span here. Let's say ID equals delete appointment. Let's create a function in here on click equals arrow function delete appointment. We're going to create this. And we're going to send the ID. And then we want to put in that icon. So we'll say class equals OI OI-X. And let's put some margin on the end of this one so the next one's not bunched up next to it too close. Margin end 3. And then we'll do one more. I've got the wrapping turned on. That's why it looks a little funny. Span, and then we're gonna say this is gonna be similar. Probably could. No, it's not too much typing. I'll say ID equals edit appointment. And then at on click equals edit appointment. Class equals OI-pencil. This is wrong. This align content around, that's not, I don't know. That should be OI-OI, OI-X is what that should say. OI-pencil. Span, okay. However, I'm going to comment all this out right now because I don't have those methods yet. And I want to build this and check it out, see what it looks like. See if we have any data. So we've got the project opened up, homepage. Let's go to the admin. Okay, that didn't work. We got an exception. So let's see what happened. I'll move this up. See what we've got. Unable to connect to any of the specified MySQL host. Okay, so parameter host cannot be an empty string. So let's see. Make sure this looks okay. MySQL connection string. So look at appsettings.json. User ID equals user ID, password equals password, port, Blazor schedule. That's right. Let's look at this on initialized async. All right, I see the problem. This should not be MySQL connection string. This should just be MySQL connection. Because in appsettings.json, that's what I called it, MySQL connection. So that's what I had wrong right there. So now let's try this again. Now if I click on admin, okay, there, it's working now. So you can see we have our one appointment. That's the one that we created. It's reserved. We have the actions commented out, so we wouldn't be able to see them anyway, but I commented them out because we don't have the methods written yet and it wouldn't build. So there we go. We're so far so good. Let's close this out. Our first method works, so we can get the data, but we don't just want to be able to look at it. We want to be able to delete it. We want to be able to edit it, things like that. So let's go back. And that was our first thing we can do is we can start writing these, the delete appointment and edit appointment methods. Before we create the edit and delete methods, we need a way to insert an appointment. So let's do that. To create a new appointment, I want to say insert appointments. So say private async task insert appointment, then available appointment model A equals new available appointment model. Okay, start time equals new date time. This is going to be a date time object, and I think let's start building out the UI. I want this method to make sense as I write it, so let's build out more of the UI for that. So we need a new section. In this section, we'll call this the Create Appointment section. Put some margin on top there. And then we'll have two different sections. One will be for when you're creating the appointment, and one is for editing. So at if create status. So if create status equals true. So those are going to be some booleans there. So let's create those in the code section. So the first one will be create status. Normally that one will be true. And edit status, that one will equal false. And we'll change it to true whenever someone clicks the edit icon. So if create status, then we'll have an H3, add new available appointment. And then let's choose this edit form. And the model is going to be, we'll create a model called new appointment. And then on valid submit, we're going to call that at insert appointment. All right. And I'm going to add this in here. I didn't use any of this validations in the model, but in case you want to, I'm going to add this in here. And the way you would use it is if you in your model, if you add in something, for example here, if you add in something and put it required in the form, it will be required. But I'm not going to do that here. That's something you can play with if you've never used. This at new appointment, need to create that. So let's go back into the code section and we'll say private available appointment model new appointment equals new available appointment model. So there we have, okay, our model is new appointment, and on valid submit, we want to insert appointment, okay? Let's start building out this form. So we're gonna have a div here. Put some margin on the bottom. And then we'll have a label. Date. Class equals form-label. Date. And then input. Type equals date. Class equals form control. ID equals start time. No, actually, ID is date for this one. And then at bind value, so this is two-way binding. At bind value equals at bind value equals at appointment dot date. All right, let's copy that down. So one. All right. And okay, so we have new appointment and we have add appointment. I'm creating another model for add appointment because from my experience, it's easier to have a separate class down here that I can work on with dates and then create a datetime object with that rather than, because it's harder to display in the UI if you use the form, the edit form that we have with Blazor. It's easier for me to use regular inputs than the inputs that come with the form. And when we work on the home page on the main interface, you'll see what I mean by that, because it's easier to use for what I'm doing on that page than what I'm doing right here. So I'm going to create another class here. Let's call it add appointment. So private add appointment. New add appointment. So we're going to have a date time. Not working there. Start time. And then we'll have end time. Okay, so now we have this new class, add appointment, and an instance of it right here, add appointment. So that's what I was doing right here, add appointment dot date, add appointment. Okay, so now we just need one date, and we're going to need start time and end time. So let's say start time, time, start time. So even though I'm using start time, or date time rather, which has a date and a time, I'm going to build it with the date they choose and the start time and the end time. So it'll make more sense in just a few minutes if it doesn't already. Start time, and then we need end time. This is for end time, types time, ID equals end time, ID equals start time there. So this should be start time. This should be end time. Okay. And then we need to submit this form. So let's create a div for that. And this is going to be, I want it to be a block button. So class equals dgrid gap2 button type equals submit. Class equals button primary, margin top 3. And this is add. And then we'll have an update one when they're editing. All right, there, so our form should be done there. So let's go back to this insert appointment now. So now this method should make much more sense the way I write this, now that we have the UI built out. So start time equals new date time. So this is, I'm building a new date time object here. So it's going to be add appointment dot date dot year, comma, add appointment dot date dot month, date dot day, add appointment dot start time dot hour, appointment dot start time dot minute, and then add appointment minute, and then we're just going to say 0 for the second there, and then taking that entire date time object to universal time. Okay, there's one. That was the start time. And then for the end time, since it's mostly the same, I'm going to copy it. We don't have to type out so much again. And then we just need to say, change it to end time. And then end time dot hour, end time dot minute, zero to universal time. So start time, end time, and then start date equals add appointment dot date and created at datetime dot UTC now, and then updated at see now again, and then reserved initially equals false because we just created it. All right. And Shift Tab, move that back. All right. And then we need our SQL statement. Insert into available appointment. Start time. End time. Start date. Created at. Updated at. Reserved. Values. At start time. Actually, we can copy all these and just put an at in front. And we're going to say await data dot save data. Our SQL statement. A right here. Config dot get connection string. Make sure I call it the right thing. MySQL connection. And then we'll refresh the page by calling this onInitialize async again. And then let's reset the form by to available and add appointment equals a new add appointment. All right, insert. The rest of the methods will not be that long. If you're following along, typing along, you may think that seemed like a lot of typing, a lot of work, but it's really, the rest of them won't be this bad. And one of the good things about Dapper is you can see exactly what you're doing. Think about exactly what you're doing. So you lose out on some of the magic that happens behind the scenes with things like Entity Framework, things like that, Entity Framework Core, but which can be very useful and handy as well. But this is good. You can see exactly what you're doing, and then you can, sometimes it's easier to find errors and fix things when they go wrong. All right, let's save that and let's build a project. Let's see if we're missing anything. So let's open up, go to admin, and we've got a form here. So let's see, let's say January 20th, 2022, start at 8 a.m., 8 a.m. and then end at 8:30 a.m. Add it in there. All right, voila, it works. So we've got a brand new appointment in here, reserved as false, and that method works. So that's good. We can add, but now that we can add appointments, and you can see the form reset, we want to be able to delete and we want to be able to edit. So let's work on those now. So delete appointment. Let's create our SQL string. For the delete, I'm going to use a try catch. And the reason is because we have that foreign key constraint. So if it doesn't work, there's different things we can do. You know, if we hide the icon for delete, this won't even come into play because they won't be able to delete. But there's another option that we can use that I'm gonna show you. So that's what I want to do with this try catch. So we'll say await data.save data, and in the SQL new object, the ID equals ID, and then config get connection string. Should be MySQL connection. Config dot get connection string. Okay, then we have, I'm going to create another Boolean called delete error message. And initially it will be false, but that's going to be, let's create that. And there's also going to be, if there's in the try catch, it'll catch the exception. So we're going to say error message for DB delete exception. That's going to be a string. We'll call it DB error message. It's a blank string at first. So let's go back to the delete. And then, so let's await. This is refreshing the page if everything is good. But if there is an error, exception, we'll say delete error message equals true, and DB error message equals exception to string. And we'll put that in the UI. So we'll put that, I think, right under the table probably be the best place for it. So let's get a Bootstrap alert for that. It's going to do Bootstrap alert. And we'll say danger. Let's use the danger. So we'll say @if delete error message. We'd show that right there. And then also in Bootstrap, let's look in their components. Let's use, let's see, which one would be good? Badge, button group, card, collapse. Let's use a collapse, yeah. Collapse. We'll drop that in here. Okay, but we don't want, let's see here. We don't need two. Let's take this one out. So this, change it right here to say show error message. Say delete action failed. And we can delete all this here. And we're going to say @db error message. Now let's take away, I'm going to uncomment this. Okay, uncomment, and then gonna normally we would want this to say false, but I'm going to change it to true temporarily because I want to test out edit appointment. Let's create a really quick so we don't get a build error. I'll take in the ID for this one too. Let's do a task. All right, that should be good enough to build. Admin. Okay, so we have right here, it says true. So if we delete, it says delete action failed and show error message. Show error. Right, that didn't work. So let's see. Did I put the JavaScript in there? I thought I did. So that should be working. Let's look back here. Copy that there. So that should be. Anyway, that should pop up. We should open up. I'm not sure why it's not opening up there. Let me look back. Make sure I didn't miss something in the UI. So at DB error message. I'm going to take all this out and just drop it in a paragraph under here. Just to verify. So let's see if that hot reload works. Let's try to delete it. So there it is. Anyway, I'm not going to waste any more time on that JavaScript, my bootstrap button, but there you'd have the error. And this is one way to do it, but maybe the best thing would really be to just take away the button so you can't even delete, so you won't see that error. But that's up to you, however you want to handle that. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this back to false. So this won't even come into play. I'll leave it here, but it won't even matter now because you won't even see the option. So it doesn't matter. Now this one, we should be able to delete this one because it's not reserved. And there it goes. So we're able to delete that one. So let's go to the edit now. Now edit is going to be more involved. We're going to have two methods for edit. There'll be two separate functions for editing. And the reason for that is the first, when you go to edit, we're just going to use that function to set some things. They add appointment, various things like that, and then update appointment. So when you edit, the form will change, and then the next one is for actually updating. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to say create status equals false. Normally it was true. We'll say edit status equals true. Create our SQL. Select star from available appointment where ID equals and then this appointment. Dynamic SQL new object ID equals ID config get connection string. And then another variable here, appointment being edited equals ID. And we're going to use this several times. So let me drop that in here. All right, this appointment, we need to create that. So that'll be another list. We'll say list available point model. This is going to be the specific appointment that somebody wants to edit. We need to track which one that is. So add appointment, start time equals this appointment. And it's a list, but it has zero, or has one item at the 0 place. So this dot start time dot to local time. Remember, we're saving in the database as universal time, so we need to change it to local time. Start time. Then we can copy this. Say end time. And then the date equals this appointment. 0. That's start date. So with this right here, this allows us to change from the create form to the edit form and to populate it with the correct data. And then once we do that, we want to be able to update the appointment. So we need a function for that. And this should be the last function for the admin. And then we can, I know this ends up being a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, the video. I think we've been going for almost an hour and 45 minutes. But we still have the rest of the interface. So this will be full CRUD operations right here, but hopefully you won't stop here. You want to keep on going and watch what I do with the home page, because there'll be some things to learn there as well. But this should be the last function that we need here. Update appointment. for the admin section. So this is private async task update appointment. And then we're going to take our available appointment model, A again, equals new available appointment model. Okay, start time. You know what? Let's copy. We should be able to copy most of this. No reason to redo it. That should all be, except reserve will be true now. Shift tab. Let's double check everything here. Reserved is true. We're updating it, so created at. We don't need that. We've already created it. Start time, end time. Yeah. We need the ID though. ID equals appointment being edited. That looks good. So we need our string SQL. Update available appointment set start time equals at start time. End time equals at end time. Start date equals at start date. Updated at equals at updated at. Reserved equals at reserved. Where, this part is very important with the where, or you're going to be changing every single appointment. Where ID equals at ID. And then await data. We're going to save data. SQL a big connection string MySQL connection. Let's refresh the page with on initialized async. And then we can reset the form. And then we'll change the UI, so we'll go back to the beginning. Create status equals true. And edit status equals false. Save that. And build. So let's see what we've got now. Okay, we got an error. Let's see. MySQL data is a type, which is not okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so what went wrong there? Disappointment string SQL. This appointment equals. This should be SQL. Not sure what happened there. All right, let's move this over. Get this in the screen. So we go to the admin. We've got, okay, let's add another one in here. So let's say January 25th, 26th, 2022, 12 p.m. until 2 p.m. Add that in. Okay, so since it's not reserved, that means we can delete it or we can edit it. And let's click edit. It's disappeared. All right, it's not exactly what we wanted to happen. So let's see. You click edit. Create status equals false. Edit status equals true. Oh, I just have the create form in here. I need to put the edit form in here. No wonder. So let's put the edit form in here. Section. And we need to put the variable that we created. So that was edit status. So let's give this an ID. We'll say ID equals edit appointment. Class equals MT5, margin top 5, and then at if edit status. And then we'll put an H3. You know what? Let's copy this. No reason not to. So add new, it should say edit existing. And we could use the same form if we wanted to. We could, instead of creating separate methods for editing and updating, we could just put some logic in there. But it can also get messy when you try to do too much with one form or one method. Really, depends on the use case. Use separate ones here. So this is going to be at update appointment. We're not inserting, we're updating this time. At update appointment. Edit status, edit existing. Model is still new appointment. At appointment.date, start time, end time. All this should be the same. All right. Save that. I do want to do one more thing though. All right, let's stop this. I want to create some custom CSS really fast. Let's do CSS, add. If this is off the screen, then I'm going to say add new item. And then I'm going to click web, content, style sheet. There we go. And I'll call this, maybe call it appointment.css. Rename this appointment.css. And let's make sure that we have it. and layout. So it should be in the CSS folder. This is the one I wanted to copy. This one right here. Paste it over that one. CSS/appointment.css. Save that. Go back to admin. Or let's go back to the appointment CSS. So let's put inside since we use those IDs, delete appointment hover and also edit appointment hover, cursor pointer. It's good. I'll probably add some more styles in for the home page, but this is good now. I just wanted to. So let's go back. Let's build this again. Check it out. See if our pointer is working and the edit form. So let's get this on the screen and go to admin. Now if we go to edit, it says add new. If we edit existing, okay, that's working. And it's got the right, well, start time, end time. So, okay, you can see right off the bat here, the times are not the same. And the reason why, we can fix this, but the reason why is because the database, the times are, we've got a difference between local time and universal time is what we have here. So let's refresh that. So 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. is what it's showing in there. But really, it's not what we set it for. So we did 12 to 2 p.m. So 5 hours difference. I'm in the East time zone, so that's right. So let's close this for now. Let's go back into admin and let's see what we have going on. So the times that are showing, we want to display to local time. To local time. That makes more sense. So when it pulls it from the database, you're looking at whatever time zone that you're really in. And for a production app, as I mentioned in the beginning, you really have to think about how you determine people's time zones. Do you require someone to create an account and then set their time zone? Or do you use this local time? Different things like that. Are you accounting for daylight saving? Lots of things to consider. So date times, it's not an easy problem to solve. Although many people have solved it, it's not easy. It's harder than you think going into it. So let's make sure. Let me look at this form again and make sure that we're got everything. Let's build this again and look at it, see what it looks like. So if we look at the admin, that looks more like what we reserved. So if I go to edit, Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to edit this to 3 p.m. And I should have changed this button to say update. All right, let's see what happened there. Error in your SQL syntax. Okay. So first, let me change this to edit, or update rather, since this is the update one. Let's go look at update appointment. Let's see what I missed in the SQL. Update available appointment. Set start time equals at start time. End time equals at end time. Start date equals at start date. Updated at reserved equals at reserved. ID equals ID. That looks right. Let me look at that message again. So we go to edit, 3 p.m. update. Reserved equals 1 at line 1. So reserved equals 1. Start date updated at. All right, it doesn't tell me exactly what it is. Okay, I figured out what the problem was. In my start date, or let's see, it was the start date equals at start date. I had a space between this at symbol and the start date. And speaking of that, just in case something is confusing about this SQL statement to anybody, we're saying start time, this is the field in the database, equals at start time, which is coming from here. So at end time means this end time, just in case that was confusing to anybody. So if I go back and show you that it's working now. So I'm gonna, well, it's reserved now, so can't edit it, but let's do, oh, as a matter of fact, I need to change that, because when you edit right here, reserved equals false, or don't even need to change it, really. Because if we're editing based on how we have the UI up there, you cannot edit if it's reserved. So we could either say reserved equals false here, or we could not even change it, because that one, if we look back, when we created that table, we said reserved can be null. So we don't even need to change that at all. So I'm going to take that out. And then here, we won't even use reserved right there. Save it. And let's go back to Blazor here. Make sure this is in view. So let's create a new appointment. Say January 22nd, 2022 at early, say 5 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. I'll add it, and then let's edit it from, so it'll go to 6:30. And now if I say update, all right, let's go. We got another error. See what this is. Where ID equals 4. All right, let's see what this is. Oh, comma. Do not need a comma there. It's got to be perfect. Remember, computers oftentimes they only do what you tell them to do. And they only understand certain things. If you put a comma where it's not supposed to be, usually instead of being smart enough to know it's not going to work, it thinks you really want a comma there, and that doesn't work. So computers are only as smart as we program them to be. So let's try that again. Let's open that back up. Let's reload. Let's edit this form, 6:30, update. Doesn't look like anything happened. Let's try 6:30, 7:30, update. Okay, so that's working. All right. So we have full CRUD operations here. We can create, read, update, and delete, but we just have the admin so far. So if we want to go a little bit further, I have something for the UI that I want to build out on the home page. We're about 2 hours and 7 minutes into this video. So if you're still with me, thank you. And we'll continue. We'll go on to the home page. There's a lot we can do on the home page. So let's do that right now. I want to take about 20 seconds and mention this website here, toragos.academy, for Toragos Language Academy. This is a website you can use to learn Spanish. I highly recommend learning a foreign language, even if it's not Spanish. But if you want to learn Spanish, then I recommend toragos.academy. Let's go. Let's change this index. We'll go ahead and stop that for now. Let's open up our Index.razor. And that page is good at using our data access library. I called it data access. Probably would have made more sense to call it data library. At using Blazor Server app. And then we're going to inject that interface. That configuration, call that config. All right, and this page will go a little bit faster. There's less to do, less functions to write. It'll be a little bit more straightforward. But I hope you learned something with the admin. So let's also do, we don't need any of this. Well, we do need the @code section. Well, let me put that in there so I don't forget. Focusing on the HTML first. Let's put everything in a container. And then we'll have separate sections here. This first section, ID equals appointment section. And we'll have a section. The next section, we'll call it step 1. Then we'll have another section. We'll call it step 2. We'll have one more section called step 3. And we'll show the sections with those Boolean values. And that's all the sections that we're going to need. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to need to bring some data in here, so we'll say list. And appointment model this time. Call it appointments. But we're also going to need the available appointment model as well. Available. Because we want to show the appointments available so the user can select the one that they want. So cannot be found. Let's look at models. No wonder. And then just like before, we're going to need to be able to track certain appointment. Missing a letter. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and create some of these variables that I know we're going to need. We're going to need a new appointment when they're reserving an appointment. And the user is going to select a date. So I'll go a little bit faster for this section than I did on the admin. I think everybody, you're starting to get the idea. If you didn't already know how Blazor Server works, so I'll go a little bit faster. And we're going to need an ID. And we're going to need to create some booleans that will help us change the UI. So we'll say step 2 ready. It's false. And I'm going to create this toggle. It's going to be used as kind of a workaround to reset a date input. And let's get our initial data here. Let's pull it from, save a little time. So from appointment. All right. And then let's see if we can borrow anything else from admin. Let's look at this table. Available appointments. What are we calling it here? Appointments. So let's see here. I think we can borrow it. We'll just change it. We'll change what we need to. Drop it in there. So it's just appointments. Appointments. Okay. What's it saying? Unclosed. No matching end tag. Let's take all this out for a minute. Section. So section. How about I just take everything in the section and then take out what I don't need. So we'll call this my scheduled appointments. If appointments, this is appointments. Don't need that. Don't need this. And we do want to leave delete. But we want to show name, reason, start time, end time, start time, end time, and then one more. We're going to call that cancel. A.full name, A.reason, start time, end time, delete appointment, ID. But we also want to send available appointment ID. The appointment doesn't exist yet. Okay. Take all that out. Reserved we don't need. Let's create delete appointment and then see if it works. And then we'll await data, save data, SQL, new object, ID equals ID. ID config, get connection string, MySQL connection. Should be SQL. And it's actually something else we need to do here, because when you delete an appointment, then it no longer needs to be shown as reserved in the other table. So let's say we're going to await a method called cancel reservation for available appointment. And we're sending the ID with it. So we'll create that one, but let's say reset the date input. And the reason, even when you're deleting, you would want to do that is because, let's say you're in the middle of you're going through UI, looking at the available appointments, and then the list is at the top. So you delete one, then want everything to reset. So that the one you deleted will also, so the one you deleted will also be available. So toggle equals toggle, and this is going to be up in the date input. It's going to be a key in the date input, which I'm going to create soon. And then step 2 ready equals false. Step 3 ready equals false. And then refresh, wait. All right, and now let's create that. Cancel reservation for available. So we'll say string SQL equals update available appointment, set reserved equals false, where ID equals at ID, and await data, save data, SQL new D equals cancel ID, config dot get connection string, MySQL connection, let me make sure. So I've got a S little q and a little L. It's a big Q and a big L. And we'll refresh. All right, let's build that and see. We can delete now. Loading. Oh, okay, nothing there. We don't have any appointments there yet for some reason. But there should be something there. So let's see. If appointments equals null. So appointments. Oh, appointments. Should be appointments. Let's build it again. Cannot. All right, let's see here. Appointments, list, appointment, model. Oh, copied and pasted and didn't change a couple things. So there we go. Let's build it again. All right, we have an appointment there, my scheduled appointment. Now let's see if we can delete it. Well, first, let me look. Okay, it's the 15th at 10 a.m. 15th at 10 a.m. and it's reserved right now. So let's see if our logic was correct. We deleted it, go to admin. Okay, it's not reserved, so now we're working. So now we don't have any appointments. So let's create the interface so we can schedule an appointment. Because who wants to create appointments by writing the SQL out every time and creating an appointment like this? Nobody wants to do that. So let's create a nice interface. We don't have to worry about making it too beautiful. I think it looks good enough for a demo. You've got the purple matching. So let's go in and let's create a method, a function in here. Let's do, actually, let's build the UI out a little bit so we know what we're looking at. So we've got this section here, appointment section. That section is done. I don't think there's anything else we need to do in there. But let's, step one here, let's drop in something just so we have a little graphic in the UI. I don't know why that popped up. Let's see here. Bootstrap, Bootstrap icons. So icons.getbootstrap.com, and then I'm going to look for one called tools, with the idea being tools, you're going to work on your car. And then I'm going to grab the SVG. Now there's pros and cons whether you use SVG or you actually install. So if I go, you could actually install Bootstrap into your project, and then it makes the code a lot cleaner instead of putting all this SVG code that takes up a lot of space. But I do like SVG sometimes because they're easy to drop in and you can change. Like I'm gonna change the size of it right here, and also no matter how big it gets, it's always gonna look good. I'm gonna put that in there, but it hurts the readability of your code is the only problem. All right, let's keep building this thing out. So we're gonna have under that, say, actually, I'm gonna say, have a paragraph, class equals lead, are you ready? Schedule a new appointment. And then put an H3 here. Step 1, select the date. Put another paragraph in here. Text muted. If there are any appointments, they will be played under step 2. Right? And then let's put an input. Not what I want. Key equals toggle. This is what I'm using to reset the date. Found that to be the easiest way. And we're going to have a function down there called show available appointments. And that's it for this section. Step 1, that's all we really need. Show available appointments. Let's create that. Put it right under here. This will be async. So these will be all the appointments that were made available using the admin section. And it's going to be on change. So when the input is changed, it's going to be sending, it's going to call this function and send some data. So we'll say date value equals args.value. Then we'll have some SQL here, SQL string equals select star from available appointment, where start date equals date, and then available appointments equals await data, load data, available appointment model, dynamic SQL new object date equals date value, and then config get connection string MySQL connection. And then again, we're going to say available appointments equals available appointments dot order by. We want to order this because you can make appointments available out of order. I can make an appointment available at 10 a.m. and then the next record in the database, I might make an appointment on the same date at 8 a.m. But I want to show in the UI to the users in order. Of course, it's easier to look at something when it's in order usually. So I'm going to say order by and x dot start time. And then I'm going to send that to a list. And then I'm going to say step 2 ready equals true. And then I'm going to say if available appointments dot count equals 0, no appointments equals true. Else, no appointments equals false. All right. Show available. Okay. So now, step 2, we said it was true in there. So step 2 is going to be at if step 2 ready. We're going to have an H3 that says step 2, select the time that you would like. And I'll have another if available appointments equals null. Else. Now we'll show the available appointments. We'll use a for each. A and available appointments. I'm going to use a unordered list. Give it a class. I think I'll put a little bit more CSS, so we'll say class equals available appointments list. And we'll say at if a dot start time dot to local time is greater than a time dot now. And a is not equal true. So as long as the start time of the available appointment is not in the past and it hasn't been reserved. And then we're going to have a list item. Not what I want there. Not reserved. We'll say at a dot start time to local time. And I'm going to format this so we don't see the seconds on there. And also, we're going to have a button. An arrow function. I have another function down there called select appointment. I'm going to send the start time and the ID. And the class for this button is going to be class equals button. And then reserve is what it will say. And then we'll have an else. Else if a dot start time to local time is greater than date time now. If it is reserved, we'll just copy this. And then I'm going to drop a span in here. Some iconic icons in there, so OI span. Have that circle with a line through it. Just got the span, then I'm going to have a non-breaking space and say already reserved. So select appointment. Let's create that one. Do it right here. Private async task. Select appointment. Date time. Date time. Okay, so selected Selected datetime equals datetime. Appointment.start time equals datetime. Step 3 ready equals true. Selected available ID equals available ID. Say, did I not create that? Selected available ID. Selected oh yeah. Make sure I've got it spelled the right way. There it is. And then our SQL. Select star from available appointment. Our ID equals that ID. All right, this appointment. Await. Dynamic. SQL. New object. ID equals available ID. Connection string and MySQL connection. We're getting really close. Oh, let's see what we have here. Let's build this again. Make sure we don't have any errors. See what the UI looks like. All right, so we've got our tools in here, my scheduled appointments. I don't have any right now. So let's see. 22nd and the 26th are available. So let's click on the 22nd. So I need a button there. That doesn't look right. Let's look one that's already reserved. So the 26th. Already reserved. Okay, that looks right. But let's look back up here. reserve button, class equals button, say button, see what it looks like. Reserve, we could change that color. We could change it to purple color. I'm just gonna leave it right now. So reserve, okay. When you click on reserve, see what happens. When you click on reserve, select appointment. Select appointment. Selected it. We've made step 3 ready equals true, but we haven't created step 3 ready yet, so let's create it right now. We'll say at if step 3 ready. And then we're going to have another H3 here. We'll say step 3. This is the final step. So we're almost at the finish line. For everyone that's still hanging in there, there's not too much longer to go. Enter your information and submit. And then we need a form. So we need a name. Let's do an edit form model. Edit form. And then the model is going to be new appointment. And on valid submit, we're going to do that save appointment. And really, we just need, after this form, we just need 2 more functions because we're going to need this save appointment, and we're going to need one more that is going to mark the other table as reserved. So save appointment, there's no space there. And I'm going to put this in just for your reference. Data annotations validator. And then validation summary. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close the edit form. So let's build this out quickly. So we need a label for name, class equals form label, full name, and then input text, class equals form control, margin bottom 2, ID equals full name, at bind value equals new appointment dot full name. All right, let's copy that. This is going to be reason. reason. And then we're going to have an input date. It's going to be hidden. And the add bind value equals new appointment start time. And I'm going to copy this last input. And this is going to be appointment time. It's just going to be a regular input. And it's going to be disabled. So you can read it, but you can't change it. And the value is going to be at selected date time. To local time. And I'll create that just in a minute. And we need a way to submit this also. So let's get the add button. All right, and let's create our final two functions. So we're going to need a save appointment. That's what it was, just to double check, save appointment. We'll put it right under select appointment. So private async task save appointment. And then our appointment model, we'll say new appointment model. Available appointment ID equals selected available ID. Full name equals new appointment dot full name. Reason equals new appointment dot reason. Start time new appointment dot start time to universal time. And end time was new appointment. End time to universal time. And created at equals datetime.utc now, and updated at equals UTC now. Shift tab. All right, string or SQL. Okay, insert into appointment. Available appointment. ID. Full name. Reason. Start time. End time. Created at. Updated at. Values. And then we're going to say at in front of all of those. At. And then we're going to await data, save data, SQL, a config, get connection string, config, MySQL connection. And then we're going to refresh the data. It's going to grab this. And then we want to await another function that we're about to create. It'll be the last one. Reserve available appointment. And we're going to say step 2 ready equals false. Step 3 ready since we're saving an appointment, we're resetting the UI there. That's what we're doing. Reset the date input. Reset new appointment. Yeah, I think I can call that one right there. So reserve available appointment. Let's create that really fast. That should be very similar to this one. Just make a couple minor changes. So that's supposed to be reserve. Reserve available appointment. We don't need anything there because we're going to use cancel ID that we've been keeping track of. So cancel ID should, let me make sure. Cancel ID. Reserve available appointment. Let's see, cancel ID. Yeah, we need, that should not be cancel ID. That should be, I know we've saved selected available ID. Selected available ID. When you select selected available ID, yeah, when you select the appointment that you want to reserve, we're setting that selected available ID. So update available appointment set reserved equals true or ID. All right, save that. Let's build this and see what we've got. Oh, let's see. 110. Got an error. That selected date time. Value equals. Oh, it just should just be value. Let's try that again. All right, let's see what we've got. So 22nd, there's one available. 22nd, and we hit reserve. Form opens up. You can put your name, put the reason. 5 a.m. is what's available. Add it, and there it is. Okay, let's pick a date that's not available. So January 17th. All right, there's one more thing I want to do. We're just about finished here. I want to tidy this up just a tad bit. I'm going to go into the CSS file, that appointment.css that we created. I'm going to add a little bit in here just to make it look a little bit better. So we had those various sections. We had appointment section. We had step 1. We had step 2. And step 3. Just gonna say margin bottom 25 pixels. And let's see what else. Say available appointments list. We had the button in there, so we're gonna say background color 34A0647. Is that right? 3, there's no 4. 3A. And then we'll say appointments list button hover. Color is white. Transform scale. So it gets just barely bigger. And we'll say available appointments li list style none. So when there's multiple appointments, we don't see all those bullet points, those disks. Then that already reserved that we created. Color should be gray. And one other thing I was thinking, whenever there are no appointments, let's see here. Available appointments will be shown here. If you select a date and there are no appointments available on that day, it would be nice to see a message. That way you at least know that the search was made for appointments. There just weren't any available. So we could put that under the bottom of the section. We could say, for example, if, because we created this no appointments, if no appointments equals true, then we could drop in an alert. So the class will be alert. Let's do alert info. And then we'll say there are no appointments for the selected date. All right, now let's try this again. Let's rebuild it. It should look a little better, and then if there are no errors, we may be finished after this. So we select date, nothing's available, okay. We can't see anything there, so let's select 22nd, it's already reserved. Let's try 26th, already reserved. So what is available? The 15th. So I'll select the 15th, reserve it. And I'll say my name, car won't start, add it in. You can see it there. They've all been reserved. But if I delete it, okay. Everything is working. That was a long video. I know. Hopefully you're still hanging around, and hope you learned a lot. You've seen what Blazor can do, and that's just the beginning. There's so much more you can do. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. After I stopped the video, I realized a few things. First thing is, when you look at the styles, available appointments list button, these should all be available appointment without the S. Let's move this over a little bit. First, looking at our styles, if we have an appointment on the 15th available, we'll say, now we have our purple button. You could change the on hover. Let me see if I didn't change that one. Appointment CS, delete button, editable, button hover. So we could say background color. Let's make sure that's there. Okay, there we go. So it's not a big deal. It's just something I wanted to do. So there we go. And if we see one that's already been reserved, now it has that more gray color. Now there are a lot of things you could do with this project. You could reset the form after you cancel. You could change the way the UI works. Maybe you would have built this completely different than I would have, and that's fine. If you have any suggestions, I'll leave them in the comments. Hopefully you learned something, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.